I'm pleased to rise to speak to the Public Health and Wellbeing Act in 2019, and I appreciate Ms Shing's comments in regards to stigma, and I would just like to make a quote from Ban Ki-moon from when he was United Nations Secretary General, and he said, "HIV stigma remains the single most important barrier to public action. It helps make AIDS the silent killer because people fear the social disgrace of talking about it or taking easily available precautions. Stigma is the chief reason why the AIDS epidemic continues to devastate societies around the world." And this is so true. I worked as a volunteer at the AIDS Council in Canberra in the late 1980s, and I went to many funerals for people who died of AIDS-related illnesses. But you know what? When it came to testing, we were really uncertain about testing because of the stigma. Because once you were required to disclose your status, the discrimination that you would experience, the stigma that you experience, the way that even your family would shut you out, the way your dentist would no longer give you a checkup. That stigma and that fear actually led many of us to not be tested. We thought that we would rather just consider that we were positive, consider that everyone was positive, take precautions, but don't be tested because of the stigma. Because also at that time, AZT was the only medication available, and it had many side effects. And certainly it was not a cure. And we don't have a cure for HIV, but my word, has it changed? I mean, I still, in listening to Ms Shing talking about 95, 95, 95, 95% of people who are positive know they're positive, 95% of them are on treatment, and 95% of them have got such low viral loads that they are undetectable. U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmissible. Even saying those words surprises me. I don't think I ever thought that we would ever get to the stage when HIV was a chronic illness that you lived with. It was not an illness that you died from. It is not an illness that you died from. And my friends now, 1 pill a day. 1 pill a day. And that keeps them extremely well. The testing that we're now doing, the PrEP, the PEP, all of the treatments that we have now made available to HIV means that U does equal U. Undetectable, untransmissible. But yet, the stigma that still surrounds it. You know, when my friend, who is very open about his status, when he speaks to people that he doesn't know about his status, you still see a slight gasp, even from the most progressive and modern people. You still see a slight shift backwards, as if just by being in his presence, they may be vulnerable to catching HIV. That still occurs today. The stigma still occurs today. And, you know, I know many of my friends who found it easier to be out about being gay, but not about being HIV positive. Not about being HIV positive. That stigma still abounds, and that still brings them great fear. So this bill, by removing and recognising that the way we test for HIV is very different, that the results of an HIV test is very different today. This bill is welcome. I think it will go some way forward to treating HIV as it should be, as a chronic illness that can be managed well, and that I hope that we do, in managing it well, we do achieve those 2020 goals of 95, 95, 95. I think they are achievable, and I commend the work of all of the AIDS councils around Australia. I used to be on a charity group called the TDF, the Trevor Daly Trust Fund, and this was to provide money for people with HIV, just to help pay their bills, help them have a holiday, help them do things. But it was called the TDF Fund, which was to die for. Now, it was sick humour, but it was true. And I'm just so pleased that in 2019, Trevor Daly, probably, who died of HIV and AIDS and was a friend, he wouldn't believe that we were talking about untransmissible, undetectable HIV. I think this is, and this bill allows us just to reflect on that fact, but also remember that there are still 8,000 people living with HIV in Victoria, and that those people still need to be supported, and we still need to fight the stigma that they receive every day. And I will continue to support my friends, and I will continue to call out HIV stigma whenever I see it or I hear it. And I'm very pleased that this bill goes towards normalising and reflecting where we are with HIV. I commend the bill.